Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Want to start off here with some roll call? Start with Rebecca.
Rebecca Campion, present.
Glenn Davis, present.
Ben Barron.
Alder Young.
And do any of our commissioners want to approve the minutes from October 8th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, those minutes are approved. I'll start off by reading the Parks and Recreation mission and vision statement. The Parks and Recreation Commission serves as an advisory board to City Council to promote and enhance quality of life by offering a broad range of safe and accessible resources, including parks, open space, trails, recreational services, and facilities which invite all to explore, play, learn, and preserve. And then here's the vision. Parks and Recreation Commission is committed to identify, advocate, and provide high quality and sustainable recreation, open spaces, and cultural amenities for all citizens and visitors by balancing the need to maintain and preserve the resources entrusted to us. Do we have any commissioner updates in the room tonight?
I'll go ahead. I attended a couple school board meeting, couple city council meetings as we approached the end of the Whistler purchase agreement. And that's pretty much about it. Oh, and I attended the Botanic Gardens and Emerald Park meeting with Parks and Rec and folks at the Botanic Gardens to see if we can kind of somehow adjust the fence line, but also physically keep some of the appropriate soccer space for the field. And I think we have a follow-up meeting next week as well. Yeah. Yeah. My pleasure.
Really excited about the donation of the land for Heritage Park for the soccer club. It's really exciting. Opening day at Hallison Hill was a lot of fun. Kids went out and went skiing, and that was great. A lot of good stuff out there.
The one update I was going to bring was Routt County Nordic, which I'm involved with. They have worked with the city to start grooming with the snowmobile Nordic Trails down in Hallison. The idea was to kind of do it early when grooming priorities were on the jumps in the Alpine Hill and be able to open up some skiing in town for folks. And that was a success. I think we had about probably 3.5 kilometers, 4 kilometers of skiing down in Hallison. I tried it today. It was a little wet and a little soft, but hopefully it snows a bit more. But that was really awesome. We were excited about that. So thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else, you guys? Well, that'll move us into our public comment for the evening, and this is for anything not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any public comment in the room? How about online? I'm going to wait a bit this time because I skipped some on the last time.
Hi, all. This is not public comment, but this is Shay. It wasn't letting me unmute myself earlier, but now it is. So I just wanted to let you know I'm present and I'm here.
Hey, Shay.
Hi.
All right. It looks like no public comment online either. That'll bring us into our discussion items for the night. We are going to start with the West Steamboat Trail Project update.
All right, good evening. My name is Matt Phillips. I am your city engineer, and I manage the engineering division of the Public Works Department. And I'm here tonight at your request to provide you with an update to the West Steamboat Trail project. And that project is being managed by the engineering division. So to provide a little bit of background first, this is just an extension of the core trail from where it currently terminates near Snowball Plaza. further to the west over to Sleepy Bear Mobile Home Park, and ideally across the highway to the construction access road there that's serving the Glen. The project will be mainly a 12-foot wide concrete trail. It will also include a 12-inch PVC water line beneath it, and also Yampa Valley Electric Association 3-conduit electrical duct bank. And then hopefully, provided funding bids come in at a reasonable cost, we can also build the pedestrian underpass beneath Highway 40, which will be about 16 feet wide underpass, 8.5 foot tall, clear height.
Where's that?
I'm sorry.
Where's that located at?
The underpass, it's on the west end. If you look at this map here, it's kind of at the western edge of the KOA before you get to Sleepy Bear. Yeah. And so that with that underpass, there's additional things that have to be included, like electrical for lighting, and also a water pumping system, dewatering system. So this project has been in the design phase since 2001, with the two main hurdles having to overcome in order to get to construction have been identifying construction funding and also acquiring all of the property rights to build this project on. Some of the funding that we have on this project is federal funding that passes through Colorado Department of Transportation. And when that happens, we have to follow all of their project development processes. So that makes the design phase and the construction phase much more complex than it would be if it was a normal city project funded with our own funds. So that adds to some of the duration as well. They also have requirements that we have to have all of the land acquired before we go to advertise for bids. And so on that topic, this is a map showing all the directly affected property owners. We have been working diligently over the past several years on this acquisition, and we have successfully completed the acquisition of almost everything, including Sleepy Bear Mobile Home Park, the Yampa Valley Housing Authority, Williams Family Partnership, and from Snowball. The city-owned Fournier parcel. We also gained rights or permissions to put the trail in the desired alignment that we're moving forward with. The last outstanding piece is the land from KOA, which we actually have an agreement for. They've been working on clearing title, which I think they just did a day or two ago. And so now we're working towards closing, which should complete that process, the whole process. So that allows us to move forward. Once that happens, there's a bunch of steps in the bidding process. So we can provide evidence to CDOT that we've acquired all the properties. They can issue us a clearance, which is a formality that allows us to proceed to the next step, which is them giving us a notice to proceed to bid. That allows us to advertise for bids. That has to happen over a minimum of 3-week period. The longer, the better. The more time we can get it out there in front of contractors, the better responses we get. So we'll get that out there as soon as we can, and then ultimately have a public bid opening. We'll evaluate all those bids, look for bid balancing, and identify the lowest responsive and responsible contractor. At which point we would issue a notice of award to that contractor and then work through the contracting process with them. Once that contracting process is complete, they'll be comfortable incurring costs associated with the project. So that means they can start ordering materials, they can start investing time in putting submittals together and all those things that go into the project management process. We can also have pre-construction meetings with them as well at that time. And so this whole timeline, although we don't have a fixed date yet of when we'll be able to advertise, is very contingent upon when we get that authorization from CDOT. But this should still put us in a very good position to be ready to break ground May 1, whenever our winter moratorium expires. So as far as construction phasing goes, we're just kind of a strategic approach to this. We've got 3 identified phases to the project. There's 2 combinations of 2 phases that exist, one of which will proceed to construction. So phase 1 is mainly the trail, the water line, the electric duct bank from Snowball Plaza to the KOA driveway. And that phase, which is shown in green there, is the same in either way we proceed. We have a phase, let me move to this next one first, phase 1B, which is a interim condition trail that, depending on funding, will just provide trail to the Sleepy Bear driveway. It does not include the underpass. There's another phase, what we call phase 2, which also includes that same segment of trail. It looks identical in plan view, but it's very different in profile view, which you can't see here. But it also includes the pedestrian underpass and another segment of trail that connects to that construction access drive. This is obviously the preferred alternative that we want to move forward with. But depending on how funding comes, or depending on how bids come in as compared to our funding, this is a contingency plan to where it's a much less cost and we can come in later in the future when we can fund the underpass and do that as a separate project. So in essence, some of this phase 1B, if we had to move forward with that alternative, would be throwaway work at the time when we were able to come through and build the ultimate phase 2 configuration. So regarding construction funding, I'm happy to say that we have right now, based on all of our current estimates for construction and all the ancillary costs, and our 2026 budget is built to fully fund the phase 1, phase 2 alternative, which is the preferred option. Over half of that funding comes from outside sources, from grant funding. And so altogether, this is about $10.5 million. And I do want to kind of talk on the right side. I don't like to read slides to people because I know you can all read, but I clearly have an issue with quality chart making in PowerPoint, but it's important for us to go around this and look at the funding sources that are applied to this, because this is probably one of the more complex projects that we've been involved with as far as funding sources and commitments. And also, I think we need to recognize those who are providing funding to us or for this project. So on the grant side of things, sorry, I can't figure out how to get this. We have Transportation Alternatives Program grant, that's the federal funding that goes through CDOT and requires us to follow their processes. And there's $1.9 million coming through that stream. We have a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development grant for $1 million, a State Department of Local Affairs grant for $2 million, a Colorado Parks and Wildlife grant for $250,000, and then Routt County is kicking in $500,000 for this project. So the balance of that is covered by city funds. So we've tapped the capital fund for $3.4 million, the water utility fund, which will go to fund the water improvement specifically for $700,000, and then the accommodations fund rounds it out at $850,000. So a lot of sources on this project to make this come to fruition. Construction timing. If we're able to move forward with our preferred alternative of phase 1 plus phase 2, that's a full 2 construction season project and will likely bleed into a third year. So phase 1 will predominantly be all that green trail construction that was in there and anything underground associated with that, water line, electric duct bank, earthwork, that type of, and the concrete for the trail. 2027 will be predominantly the underpass construction with all the associated retaining walls, the pumping systems, the electrical, and that will go in itself in a phased configuration so that we are managing traffic on Highway 40 to not restrict or prevent traffic from flowing through there. And then projects like this big and of this type, they tend to have really long tails. And so I would not be surprised to see us go into a third year, 2028, to do some cleanup work, landscaping, some minor stuff. But the core of the project, no pun intended, would be for all the trail to be in place and usable. So that's the update, pretty brief, but I'll take any questions you may have.
That's really exciting. Great job on the funding aspect of it. I know that's always a big challenge. How far does that take the core trail to the city limits, or what's sort of, it's great doing it there. I'm just curious what the overall plan is westward.
Not quite. It doesn't go quite to the city limits. It just goes to Sleepy Bear Mobile Home Park. And then with the crossing, that will allow future access to Brown Ranch and up to Silver Spur and Steamboat 2. Not sure, I may defer to Parks on their ultimate plan for what future phases of that look like. We've just been brought in to help deliver this project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So the trail from kind of that phase 2 over to the Silver Spur that's not part of this, what we're talking about here, correct?
Right. So, sorry, I'm trying to get the right
Are
slide.
you talking about the soft surface trail?
Yeah, it does
Yep.
it already kind of exists there, right?
I think go
Ye-
through Browns Ranch, like once that ever happens, and then connect to Silver Spur and that one, but I'm not sure where like Heritage Park ties in.
So initially, that soft surface trail was considered as a phase 3 to this project, but during the last round of Brown Ranch negotiations, that part of the trail was going to be built by the development as it came in. So it was removed from this project. And so with that going away and a new iteration coming, I don't know what that looks like, but I would expect the same starting point anyway.
Got it.
I know underpasses are expensive, but there's a lot of crossings from Heritage Park over to the school. And I know that's outside of city limits, but we can keep that in mind when we plan out. That would be fantastic, but this looks great. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Is the funding that you have listed here for phase 1 and phase 2?
Yes, it's for the preferred phase 1, phase 2. So if we had to dial back and just go to the phase 1, phase 1B, the funding structure would look a little different, but I didn't want to overcomplicate things tonight.
Thank you.
So then, like our citizens on the west side of town, they would then go from Silver Spur or Steamboat 2 down the soft surface trail to the underpass and then get on the core trail at Sleepy Bear?
Correct.
Is there a trail that exists there now?
It was like a social one at one point.
You used the exact correct term. Thank you, Calder. There is a social trail across the Yampa Valley Housing Authority property. So as our role as city staff and commissioners, we probably shouldn't be encouraging that route, although it's a social trail, we know people do utilize it. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, thanks,
awesome.
Matt.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're excited about this. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item? How about online? All right. Well, that'll bring us to 2026 budget and capital improvements project update.
Awesome. I believe our team will be sharing the screen. While that happens, I have the first couple of slides before I pass it off to 4 awesome presenters tonight. You'll be hearing from Tara, from Stephanie, from Drew, and from Matt about all of the different divisions and what their budgets look like for 2026. So taking a step back a few years ago, I think probably actually 5 now, City Council provided direction to the Parks and Rec Commission and city staff to review the budget annually and after it's adopted. So that way you know what's in the pipeline, you're able to provide feedback. So our city council did adopt the 2026 budget in October, and we'll be hitting some of the highlights for you. Our budget process starts, if you could go to the next slide when you can, Matt. Our budget process actually starts early summer in June when we're provided with budget guiding principles. This year was, I won't make it extreme and I won't sugarcoat it. This was the first time we were actually directed as city staff to budget down. So the national consumer confidence is down, which the city is worried it could negatively impact our local economy. Our direction was to build our 2026 operating budgets 2% below our 2025 budget. So not a drastic cut, but during inflation, that definitely has an impact. To focus on providing quality of services versus quantity of services, to propose budgets that prioritize strategic goals, to evaluate and justify all costs to achieve effectiveness and efficiency, to prioritize our employee retention, and focus on efficiencies and effectiveness. Consider current resources to be prepared to make hard choices with respect to service levels. Then regarding revenues, the 2026 sales tax revenue estimates are expected to be similar to 2025 sales tax revenue, and to review all of our fees and consider cost recovery. With expenses, be prepared to evaluate trade-offs and recommend reasonable alternatives. For any new employee requests, to be prepared to justify with capability and capacity analysis, which is our normal policy, and to consider current vacancies, recruitment, retention, and when considering new employee requests. With that, it sounds pretty doom and gloom. I'm very pleased with our team and the 2026 budget that we received out of that. As we go over different divisions, you'll definitely see some increases, some decreases, but overarchingly, I'm very proud of our team for working through some hard decision-making processes and coming up with solutions to best serve our community and our teams. I'm really impressed with where we landed. I don't believe the community will notice too many impacts. And that's due to a very skilled team in decision-making. Couple more beats for me. We did a different allocated overhead method this year. So our allocated overhead is administered by our finance department. And throughout the city, there are several what are designated as enterprise funds. Haymaker is one of them, where they are expected to cover all of their expenses with revenues that they bring in. The water fund is one, sewer is one. Then we also have special revenue funds, or that are enterprise-like say the ice rink, Howelson Hill, where they do have very high or very strong cost recovery expectations, and they're managed like a business, but they're not expected to recover 100% of their costs. Anything that falls into that business-like or enterprise type fund, they pay an allocated overhead for general city services, whether it's city council, accounting, legal costs. There's a mathematical equation that our finance department puts together to help allocate those costs to reflect the true costs of providing that service. There was a significant change to that this year. Why the change was needed is the prior allocation method no longer reflected how citywide costs were distributed across programs and services. It improved the alignment needed between operational activity and financial outcomes, and it improved our financial reporting. Some big notable changes in there is specifically our recreation manager and our Howelson Ski and Rodeo manager. They moved from the administration division personnel budget to the recreational personnel budgets that they're directly overseeing. So for example, our ski rodeo manager, Brad Setter, moved from being paid out of one admin budget to 60% Howelson Hill, 40% rodeo. Same with our recreation manager, was split on an estimate of how her time spent between managing youth programs, adult sports, the ice rink, senior programming, et cetera. So you'll notice some of those changes. And then significant allocated overhead increases to Howelson Hill, Haymaker, ice rink, and rodeo budgets. In some cases, it doubled or nearly tripled the previous allocated overhead costs. But staff and I, same with our finance department, spent a good amount of time diving into them, and they're pretty realistic costs for what it actually takes to provide those services. So those are some areas where things have drastically, significantly changed. So when you compare one year to the next year, it's just good to have that background. All right, going into our divisions before I pass it off. For our recreation division that Drew will be covering, we have programming for youth, teen, adult, and seniors. We have the Howelson Hill ski area, the rodeo, the ice rink, and golf. In our land management divisions, we have a streetscapes budget. So the medians, the street trees. We have our parks and natural resources, our trails and open space, and the Botanic Park. And then in administration, we have program registration, facility and field reservations, special event permitting, seasonal employee housing, project coordination. And for development, we have project management, procurement, long-range planning, land acquisition, park design, park development, capital improvements, and asset management. So I will pass it off to Tara to cover administration. And you guys are welcome to chime in and ask questions. I know this can be a not as exciting PowerPoint. We hope you do ask questions as we go along.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tara Kuzak, Admin Services Supervisor. As you can see here, we've got the 2025 and the 2026 budget, so you can compare the difference there. As Angela noted, the allocated overhead is the reason for that significant decrease that you're seeing. And the budgets that are in our presentation do reflect our personnel as well as our operating combined. So as far as the highlights for the admin budget in 2025 and a key focus as we move into 2026 has been our commitment to expanding professional development opportunities for our 50 full-time team members. Throughout the past year, our leadership team has restructured internal meetings to prioritize a dedicated professional development series aimed at strengthening workplace culture, communication, and team dynamics. While much of this work was facilitated by the 5 of us internally, we also recognize the value of specialized external support. And after evaluating multiple firms, we selected Think Great, that's their logo up there, to lead a 2-day training session centered on leadership at every level. That was a theme that we came up with as a team along with their leadership. Their philosophy aligned closely with our goals, and staff responded positively to the tools and insights gained from these sessions. This experience reaffirmed the importance of intentional guided team development and established a strong foundation for our continued growth. These sessions took place in July of this year and provided a sense of a launch pad for the remainder of this year with our team meetings, and we were consistently revisiting and building upon the objectives that we had identified through our sessions with Think Great. And so we're very excited to carry this momentum forward into the next year and continue our partnership with the Think Great team. So into 2026. So in January, we're going to be introducing a 6-month peer-to-peer leadership cohort designed for our managers and supervisors. So of our 50 full-time employees, that is 13 people. This program will combine coaching, practical tools, and real-world leadership strategies in a collaborative cohort model. And our goal is to launch additional cohorts, kind of seeing how this one takes off over the next 6 months. And that will allow us to reinforce the shared leadership concepts, promote alignment across roles, and strengthen department-wide cohesion. And then we're also going to have Think Great back this July for another 2-day department-wide development session, and the theme being leveling up leadership. So another thing that we've decided as a team, along with with Eric and his team that is guiding that. So that we will be focusing on enhancing communication, accountability, and collaborative problem solving. And then in closing, I just want to mention that these initiatives reflect the city's ongoing commitment to investing in our workforce and strengthening organizational culture by aligning our professional development efforts more intentionally with our mission, vision, and values. Pretty exciting stuff. Any questions?
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Drew Pickle, Deputy Director for Recreation. We'll jump in with programming and give some highlights on the budget. We're growing a little bit, about 100,000 to 1.3. Highlights for 25 and going into 26 is development of River Race Series. If some of you saw that event, it was very well received. The timing allowed us to align with it ending the week before we started Riverfest, so it was really dovetailed in with Friends of the Yampa and the initiative that they lead to get more awareness on the river. Also just wanting to engage more river users and get them bought into what we're doing with our recreational programming. Safety upgrades are highlighted there. If you've played softball or volleyball at Howison, Matt's team and Stephanie's team helped to get this done, where we now have nets. So if you hit a dinger in softball, you're not going to take out a volleyball player. So we're excited about that improvement. And that was something that our recreation team was very happy to have the support of the rest of the department as a safety upgrade for 2025. 2026, still have a full billet of recreational programming, our after-school programs, our kids' night out programs, and specific to programming with our youth recreation. We'll continue with our river race, our ski ascent series, mountain bike series as well. So those were not impacted by the budget. We were allowed to grow a little bit there to support those services. Allison Ice Rink, expecting lots of interest in curling, which happens every Winter Olympic cycle. So we have Winter Olympics coming, and so wanted to highlight our curling option. Sign up now, by the way. We are open for 2026 curling season. Had some growth in that budget. That's directly tied to the new allocated overhead that impacted this budget. So it grew, but it really is tied back to the general fund for covering those costs as we look at the allocated overhead burden for the ice rink. Header trench refurbishment was started in 25. We'll be actually doing the project in early 26. This may sound bizarre, but it is actually where the ice plant connects to the sheet of ice. It's under the floor, and the initial construction was not done in a way that could sustain the weight of the Zamboni and exposure to water. So what has happened is that those are pressure treated 2x8s. Some of them were cut in a way that did compromise their structural integrity. And we're going to come in with galvanized steel and replace that to make sure that that's safe and secure for our users and staff. Hot topic in my world is really the second sheet of ice. So the city stepped up, as you know, and committed $2 million, the city council, to support that if we receive the matching funds from our partners with Steamboat Springs Youth Hockey Association. So we had our kickoff meeting this week. It went really well. We're already having subcommittee meetings starting on Thursday. We're going to be putting together a communication plan. The Youth Hockey Association is continuing to talk to donors. They've already received verbal commitments for a pretty significant amount of the funds they're looking to obtain to support the project. We will be working with the city's facilities department, and they'll be overseeing this project, working closely with my staff as well as Matt's team in the development arm at Parks.
For the trench refurbishment, is that going to impact the use of the current ice rink, and for how long would that be?
It's a great question. So we're developing RFP to get on the street, hopefully before the end of this year. We can't award it until January, so the timing will work out well. And then we have an annual closure in April where we take out the ice and either update, paint, et cetera, underneath the ice, do board refurbishment and so forth. So we're trying to get stars to align to get a contractor in there to execute this work in a 4 to 5 week period. And our intent is to have the least amount of impact on users as possible. So very good question, because any impact there is huge. We're currently have figure skaters at 5:15 a.m., adult hockey ending around 11:30 to midnight. So you're probably in that crowd. It's a late crowd to get adult hockey done. So yes, we do not want to impact that timeline. Rodeo had another great season. They sold out almost every weekend. They're adding two. They received permission from the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association to add 2 more rodeos. We'll have 25 in 2026. And it continues to be a big draw for tourism as well as generating revenue for the city. Our team does a lot of the behind the scenes work there. And so we saw some allocated overhead as part of the shift in this budget. We also have a couple projects that we're doing that are under 50,000, so they're going to be within our budget. We have an electrical project working with facilities. The old secretary's office needs to be addressed. It's starting to fail. The electrical panel has had a lot of taxes placed on it. It's kind of overburdened. So we're working with an electrical engineer to update that, remove it from the secretary's office. The good thing with the success of the rodeo is that the rodeo board has money. So they're going to pay for the new secretary's office. It's a great partnership. They're going to align that architecturally with the announcer's booth so that we keep the look and feel. And we're hoping to get that accomplished right around the time we melt out. So whenever that may be, April, May, we'll try to get these projects wrapped up so that we're ready. First rodeo is actually not ours in the sense of Steamboat Series. It's a team roping through the U.S. Team Roping Association. They're going to be coming in the second week of June. So we're trying to get all these projects lined up and knocked out before those folks arrive. House and ski area. The biggest project that we briefed you on throughout the year has been the pump house project. So we're going from a 2.4 operating budget to 2.91. That pump house project is really about being able to address situations that we're in right now. And that is the ability to provide enough water to make snow when we have windows of time to do that. So currently, with the weather impacts, we're having a week of delay, as you were notified, for our traditional opening date, but also with our partner at the Winter Sports Club, some delays in getting the upper portion of the face open. Some of you are very familiar with Howison, so that would be getting to the top. So we are open to the second exit on the Palma, but we do not have the Barrows lift open. And that has to do with not having overnight temperatures that help us make snow. And then these daytime 40s that unfortunately look to have another 10 days of that coming. So with the pump house project phase 2, moving into phase 3, we will be a year from now, we'll still, 2027? So next year's cycle. So wanted to confirm with the expert. So that will give us the ability to run all our guns at one time. Right now, we have to kind of pick zones to operate in. So it will be a big benefit. So when we do have temperatures, when we have these warm spells, when we do have the cold temperatures, we'll be able to make a lot more snow. And then the team can move that snow around to where it's needed. The Palma Lift refurbishment project is complete. The building at the top, when you get off the Palma, take a look at it. And it looks really good, architecturally aligned with the tow house and with the lodge. Matt and team did a great job with that project. It looks really good. It's really functional. It's got safer view corridors for the operator to be able to see down the Palma, which is very important. So from a user standpoint and from a safety standpoint, this was a big advancement for Howison Hill. Haymaker had a banner year. I just met with the Golf Management Committee this morning. We had really good numbers. Obviously, with the weather, had one of the best Novembers they've ever had. So really good things happening there. The new GPS units for golf carts are projected in 26. Our partner in food, which is Destination Hospitality, you would know them as Table 79 in Orem and Periodic Table at Catamount. They are really interested in doing more venue, large group service. So we're looking at some wedding sites and developing some sites there to help them drive more F&B revenue through the door. The benefit of that also is to our bottom line. So we're able to pay their fee and then split revenues after their fee. So that's an important thing. We want to support them in growing our services and revenue. And they are 100% enterprise fund. Our team out there does a great job. Even with an increase in allocated overhead, they still ended the year in the black. So where does that money go? We're putting it into a holding fund to do a major irrigation refurbishment. And so that will be funded over the next few years. We've already got around $3 million in the fund, and that allows us to continue to act like an enterprise fund, not hit the general fund, not go after CIP monies that other departments may need access to self-fund this irrigation upgrade. Part of that was already completed, which was literally somebody ground truth every single sprinkler head and every single junction box in the irrigation system at Haymaker this summer. So they GPSed and got all those locations established. So then the design work will go even more smoothly. And before I hand it off to my colleague, any questions about recreation budget in 2026?
This might just be like an in the weeds question, but when we have to delay the opening of Howison and like it's expected that we're not going to be able to blow much snow for the next 10 days, does that have a drastic impact on revenues or no? Because there's usually not that many people coming at the beginning of the season.
Fortunately, the beginning of the season is typically pass sales, locals.
Okay.
Ski Free Sunday was still a really good turnout last Sunday. We'll have one as well. I expect good numbers this Sunday. Revenue wise, it does hurt us a little bit, but not as significantly as if we weren't ready to operate in full force after Christmas. And the tubing business is also another enterprise-like activity that we participate in. We're working through Central Reservation with Ski Corps. And so we've got a lot of bookings for Christmas through the beginning of January. So my team is nervous, optimistically so, about getting tubing open as soon as we can, because that's a great revenue source for us and also engages out-of-towners with Howison, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
The cultural history. And they can also, if they're beginners, I mean, they've cut their price significantly. They can come out and ski with us for, about 20% of what they would have to pay up at the hill. So
Thank you.
absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Drew.
Okay, good evening. Stephanie Monroe, Deputy Director of Land Management. First up on the land side is streetscapes. If you've noticed some seasonal lights up, we've had a successful season of installing those lights. We've had a couple bumps with some electrical issues going forward, but we're working through that. The the seasonal lights with the trees and the tree pruning that happened first early this fall. We completed that with on the Lincoln with the tree pruning cycle. The tree pruning cycle is an every 3-year cycle. So this year was a little bit heavier of an impact. And this is a partnered approach that we use with Main Street Steamboat, and they contract with Save a Tree. So it's a combined partnership with Steamboat's Main Street Steamboat. We are currently working with Save a Tree and Main Street Steamboat to doing some after action review. We did have some community response on the travel of that day that we were installing those lights along Lincoln with the trees. Maybe you were caught in it yourself. And then, of course, that 3-year tree pruning didn't complicated that event even more so. So we'll probably be looking at some process improvements for next year, and of course that next 3-year cycle to do some good updates to accommodate. We will continue to work through the contractual work, such as the scoria removal, as well as some of the landscape maintenance around the city medians, as shown in that picture there. Moving forward to parks, our parks division, they've worked really hard this past year, so it's kind of a 2025 highlight of some success stories in some policy updates. An example to this would be that glyphosate topic that you all worked so hard with us as well as they are really focusing on developing some standard operating procedures and specializing in a focus of onboarding and continuing training processes for our seasonal staff, since we rely so heavily on them in the high season. Matt will spotlight this as well, but it's worth saying that the Emerald Park Playground is on deck, and we're just supporting our planning team members to be able to get that going and the construction started and taking that over upon completion. So excited about that. And our irrigation improvements, I have a list here, and I'm probably going to get very technical. My team gave me a list of stuff for talking points for irrigation. We're pretty proud of the irrigation. It's not something that is, you see, it's not a shining star in the community, but it is definitely a big impact infrastructure-wise. And some of this work has been done because last year we were able to attain the water conservation irrigation specialist to our team. So he has worked really hard in a very small crew. Some of the highlights that he's been able to do is identify existing systems, issues, and inefficiencies. They have actively assessed the current irrigation systems to identify problems such as aging components, improper sprinkler coverage, pressure inconsistencies, and outdating programming, allowing us to prioritize repairs and further improvements to an overall system performance. So big win on there. That'll also help our water efficiency going forward. They've mapped about 50% of our irrigation systems in GIS. So we're working to get all of those mapped so we can identify them more quickly. And this also has helped improve the maintenance and efficiency and accuracy for 811 digging and ticket reporting. Creating a park-specific water budget. A water budget is that we've carefully calculated and approximately how much water each park is needing based on the amount of water lost in the soil. So at Emerald Park, you've made a notice we had some stuff in the soil, and that was monitoring that water collection. So that is to help out with that turf treatment as well, and just really making sure our turf looks really good and is getting the appropriate amount of nutrients. Let's see here. We've also optimized the irrigation at the highest use parks by replacing outdated, incorrect sprinkler heads and nozzles to ensure that each of them receive the right amount of water, reducing both under and overwatering in our park systems. And then last but not least, an improvement of flow management. Flow management means monitoring how much water is moving through the irrigation system, using that smart irrigation controllers and water meters to so the team can quickly detect abnormal watering uses such as leaks or something that's malfunctioned, and can get on it very quickly and take care of the situation. So some really exciting stuff going on in that team, and that particular team member is also helping us with the design of our irrigation capital improvement project that will be happening in Emerald Park. So really exciting and really tremendous work going on through that team. Ski Town Park, it's great to note that we put it back into action last year, putting it back into programming action and working out some of those kinks. The team held up and the programmed really well this last season. So shout out to that project as well as the team taking back over that park. The team is excited to add a top dresser, so some new equipment, and an air compressor to our inventory of equipment this year. The air compressor is going to be shared with the Haymaker team. So that was a combined kind of innovative idea between the two teams on our irrigation specialist actually rents that in Wyoming. So staff time to getting a compressor of that size and magnitude to be able to take care of both our parks as well as the Haymaker and blowing out the irrigation systems. It made more sense to purchase one. So we're really excited to be able to have that equipment on hand and in the hands of our workers. Let's see. Last season, we finally received the delivery of a Mini X. It's the cutest little thing ever. I think I can even operate it. So, but it's cute, but it's tiny, but it's mighty. And we've already put into action working on some really unique areas that can't have a big piece of equipment over property and that kind of thing. So moving on. Oops, wrong button. It's worth mentioning as part of our parks is the natural resources. I'm going to highlight land management. Natural resources also is the Yampa River. So, but I'm going to focus on the Mineral Springs as a highlight. We have a very engaged Mineral Springs steering committee that I work with, and they have been very, very busy this last year and really getting stuff put into production. We have will be by the end of this year, have all of our mineral springs registered through the state natural designations, designating them as natural springs. So really important work. So when things are happening, we have an identified registry of that natural springs. We have re-engaged with AECOM and USGS with their work to be able to develop protective measures within boundaries of those historic designated boundaries. So we recently had a project over at Iron Springs and had a lot of lessons learned there, which this part will really help us with identifying what are those go, not go areas that we can impact those natural springs. So really excited for the work to be able to put back in and have some production and documentation from that. We are budgeted and to maintain some of this drainage problems of the springs. Iron Springs will be completed next year, and we're looking at helping some drainage issues at Lithia Springs. Some of the big successes that has happened with the team, as well as the help with our Mineral Springs Steering Committee. Black Sulphur Springs has a new ADA ramp, so you can go all the way down into almost touching it through accessibility, so that's pretty cool. Iron Springs, the catchment basin connectivity has been increased and enhanced. Prevention and underground of the Comcast and electrical lines over at Iron Springs. That was the project that we learned a lot from. Lithia Springs, we've learned some new drainage discoveries, so we'll be working at next year applying some better drainage. And of course, re-engagement with AECom and helping us with some reporting action. And then just the partnership between USGS and our very smart Mineral Springs committee, just applying a lot of that scientific research. This picture is pretty cool. The other thing that we're trying to do is put together an inventory. So eventually we'll be able to be working with our GIS department and staff here to be able to get things online and really easily accessible to our outside external patrons. But we've been working on high definition drone pictures of each of our mineral springs. So this is Black Sulphur Springs. So pretty cool picture. All right. Trails, moving into trails. We are really happy about finally purchasing a spray rig. And then this next year, we have been able to approve a budget of a side-by-side ATV. This will help us with spraying the noxious weeds up in those high areas and that open space areas and trails that we have to maintain. Bridge inspections for all of our core trails will be completed by the end of this year. We're working on those. Continued maintenance for the Bear River Bike Park dirt jumps. That's a contractual with Jump Doctor. And then we have also done this past year, worked with the Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, and we're in process right now of updating that agreement for another 5 years. So that we're looking forward to having them here, the big help. And then I know Matt will be highlighting this as well, but we also opened up the Highway to Hell, and you all helped us name that as well. So exciting stuff in the trails. Last but not least, open space.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How often do the bridge inspections happen? That's not a yearly thing, is it?
It's annually,
Okay,
so we
every
go
year.
through them annually.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, I didn't write notes on this, so I'm going to ad-lib this. Our open space wildlife study at Legacy Ridge we're almost to the point where we're going to be able to open up and start talking about what they learned. We contracted that out for a study for bobolinks, which is the picture of that bird there. We continued our River Ambassador program through and worked with partnership with Friends of the Yampa. The hedge gate at Walton Creek is, I believe, 2026, and I can verify that if we have to. Sea-hole design is a brand new CIP. It wasn't something that was approved through the official process of CIP, but we had some internal conversation with some boat permitting, the permit funding that we've collected over the last couple of years through that program. So we have a good amount of money that we can start with that design program. So really exciting stuff in the sense of being able to utilize that funding source, as well as partnering with Friends of the Yampa in kind of doing kind of our facelift and redesign. And I'll let Matt kind of share what that might look like. And then something really exciting for 2026, partnering with our fire and a couple other outside partnerships to do some fire mitigation through the city. So Jenny, our open space supervisor, is engaged with that group to be able to work with. And she also will be our liaison for our e-bike committee as well. So that's coming as well per your all direction. Okay. I think now I'm finally to, last but not least, my Yampa River Botanic Park. As you all know, it's kind of a very unique program and park within our Emerald Park Community Sports Complex. and facilities. So some of the big highlights that they're working on is, if you haven't been on the core trail near the south end of the park, they had a brand new southwest corner adjacent to the core trail. There's a brand new garden. It's beautiful. It's called the Serenity Garden. And it's really visible right there by the Trillium House on the core trail. So next spring/summer, take a look at that. Turned out very nice. They are working on an irrigation redesign with a contractor and our internal staff. The next year, they have an approved CIP project, propagation house, which is a small scale greenhouse. Exciting stuff where they can collect seeds and cuttings of different plants from all over the Yampa Valley and get them started in kind of a greenhouse setting. So yeah, and I do have on the next slide is just kind of a concept of what that greenhouse would look like. And that is also going to be located close to the Trillium House on that side of the Botanic Park. That is all I have. Any questions for land management?
What's the snake camera?
Oh, snake camera. I just zipped through that, didn't I?
Yeah.
In case there's
Um,
there.
Yeah,
okay.
so we're using that primarily. I think we're primarily going to use it to be able to help camera some of our mineral springs and the drainage. But we're also using it for irrigation as well. So it's a really cool piece of machine that we recently were able to purchase this last year. Haven't used it much because we received it right when staff was starting to transition into winter operations. So we cameraed the Black Sulphur drainage and just kind of checked it out to test it, but really exciting stuff. So yeah, it has the ability to have the camera and showing, and it can move. So a lot of our infrastructure as far as irrigation is jagged. So this will allow us, as well as the mineral springs, it's like all of a sudden it just stops. So this will allow us to pivot and turn, and have some functionality to be able to get through some of those spots.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mention that. That was on that slide. Anything else? All right, I think
Stephanie?
capital improvement.
You driving the mini excavator.
Oh, no.
You could request that in the next slideshow.
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Barnard, Parks and Recreation Development Manager. I'm going to run through some capital projects, but I'm also going to kind of give us a 2025 recap of the projects that we have been working on this year. As Stephanie did mention, one of our trail projects was the Emerald Mountain Downhill Directional Trail, Highway to Hell. Really happy with the final turnout of this, 3.25 miles, and our contract with Flow Ride Designs was $330,000. And our structure is, it was a 2-year project for them, but they're actually coming back the 3rd year to do some rework of some areas. We've gotten some feedback from some of our users, and this was always part of our plan, was for them to come and retouch after we get some compaction. But just being in the community that we're in, we've heard really good feedback. And so we've got a couple of areas that we're going to touch up and make some corrections on, but really excited with that project being completed. Rita Valentine Shade Shelter. This was a partner project with Steamboat Digs Dogs. So it was funded by them and then managed by our management team, but it's a second shade shelter that we put out there. This was the day after that it was installed, but now we have the reclamation work around that done. If you haven't been out there to see it, it's pretty nice. Drew also mentioned the Howelson ball field safety netting. Basically, this netting, we went with a broader reach in those outfield areas to protect the users on the backside of that fence. And then we also did a 10-foot increase. Traditionally, we've been taking those nets up and down every year, and that itself is a pretty big task, but then storing those massive nets was always kind of a challenge for us. We were able to connect with the vendor that works with Topgolf across the United States. And so we're using their netting product, which is a year-round product. And so we're able to leave it in place and it's able to deal with the weather. So we're really excited about that. Staff is super excited about not having to deal with that netting annually like we have been doing. We do have a few reclamation items that we need to do next spring, some sod improvements and some irrigation edits just from the impacts of that construction, but that was late this fall. So we will finish that work early in 2026. One of our big projects that we've been working with, that's actually going to be a 3-year project. We just finished year 2 was our parks water conservation improvements. And this primarily is like the master valves at sites, the soil moisture sensing that we've been putting out into our turf areas to have just a smart approach as how we're managing those fields. We're not watering them when the moisture level is high enough to keep that grass healthy for the day. And so it's really some smart technology. This is in the pump house at Howelson Hills. So we have some inline ductile pieces there with some master valves. But I think what's really neat to talk about is the list of sites that we were able to hit this year. Our first year in 2024, we kind of did a lot of the easier sites that are easy for us to kind of click off the list. So as we finished this year, we've hit 34 different sites in our parks network, and just really happy to get that online. I know our park supervisor, Hannes Thorson, is really excited because he can sit in his office and use like an iPad style tool to go around and individually look at all these different sites, how they're performing, what their moisture levels are. If any of them are having a fault, he can go right to that on his smart device and make corrections or get it back online with whatever he needs to do. It's just amazing technology that we're able to do across our system. And to hit 34 sites, we have one more year in 2026 that we have an additional 13 different sites that we're going to hit. And then our project and our parks network will be complete. This was a grant project. The whole project total was $1,325,000. So pretty excited with this technology. Pommel lift improvements, this was another multi-year project. The first year, and probably the first item that kind of motivated us to do was the photo on the right-hand side there with the bowl wheel replacement. We were receiving some fatigue in the spokes of that bowl wheel, and so we were able to find a new one over in Europe that was manufactured for us, and we brought it over, and that was one of the first elements that went in. With that, we did an additional, we upgraded the tow rope with that, and then also all the communication lines with that system. So really bringing probably one of the oldest lifts that's still operating up to current standards. At the top, Drew mentioned it did come with a new lift shack, but it's not only a lift shack. If you look at that center picture, there's kind of that garage door style on the left, and then the left picture shows it's actually a hydraulic tensioning unit that really modernized that. The tension of the rope can change with if the sun is out, if the sun's not out, with the temperature. And so we're always, before we were manually pumping that tensioning system up. It's a hydraulic ram that creates that tension on the top lift tower. And now it's all automated, it's electric. It's not outside in the elements anymore. We had a place to put it. So we have a small mechanical room as part of that lift shack at the top. And then finally, the right picture, Drew also talked about just the different views they're able to get. And it's a fantastic lift shack at the top with views in every different direction. So some of the best views in town probably are from that lift shack. I really wanted to treat you guys with this photo tonight. It's just a profile of what we're really doing at the Howelson Hill Pump House, that mechanical room. Just to be able to pump our water right that we have on the Yampa River, we are only using a 400 horsepower pump in there right now to push up Howelson Hill, and it really limits our capacity and what we're able to do up there. So with the new pump, we'll have a redundant system. The 400 horse will be our backup pump moving forward, but the new pump will be a 600 horsepower pump that will be able to utilize our complete water right that we're able to pull off the Yampa River. Along with that pump, we are getting new VFD drives for both the 400 and the 600. And we will also have a new PLC, which is ultimately like the brain that kind of manages when when Brad Setter's crew is out there and turning on a new snow gun, what that does, and it's able to allow and adjust and ramps that up, or it gives a signal to the VFD so the VFD can ramp it up. But it's really the management tool that we use to kind of run the snow guns on the hill. Back to that slide. We're under contract on this one. So the design was complete. We are now under contract for 2026. This project will start in May, and we should have it on the mechanical portion of this. We should have online by the beginning of the 26, 27 snowmaking season. This is a two-phase project. I'm going to jump to the next slide here and show the entire hydraulic profile for this one, which uses our intake structure on the Yampa River. Pump house is kind of in the center of this, and then ultimately getting to the top of the hill where we're able to expand some of our snowmaking system. But there's a whole nother civil section to this. We're currently in the design phase of this in 2025. We'll go back in the 2027 CIP ask cycle, which happens next summer in 26, to acquire the dollars for the civil portion of this. And at that point, we'll be able to pump our full water right out of the Yampa. We'll have capacity with our pump, but we don't have the plumbing infrastructure done at that point. Parkland acquisition, 2025 was a huge year for this. Just the progress that we've made. We did sign a purchase agreement in 2024 for Slate Creek, but we really started making traction or getting some traction with our grants in 2025. GOCO, Routt County Purchase of Development Rights, our PDR, our Land and Water Conservation Fund, and we're still waiting to hear back from the Gates Family Foundation. We're anticipating our closing date hasn't changed from when we signed our contract with the sellers. It's still looking like July of 2026. And then also in Parkland acquisition, Whistler Park, just showing this. I know you guys have seen this before, but just the impact that this really does, this 9.2 acres has on that facility for us. You know, if we lost that piece of property, it would be so detrimental to the park. Those sports fields would literally just get knifed in half and would just change the character of that park. So we're just really excited to get a purchase agreement here signed, and then we're jumping into our funding strategy and moving forward with that for 2026. One more of these great drawings for you was the raw water irrigation system that we're currently designing for Little Toots and Bud Warner Library. Interesting location because we have Soda Creek right there, which we have the most senior right the city holds comes from Soda Creek, and we're going to be able to tap that for some raw water irrigation at those two sites. And then secondary, it's a dual raw water source. Our secondary source would be from the Yampa River. So we have two intake structures that feed into a pump skid. This is in the floodplain, so we're not building a pump house on this site. It's going to be a really low, kind of not very intrusive look as we add that. It's going to be right adjacent to the community house that's in Little Toots Park. Our construction is partially funded. This project has hit some complexities with the mechanical work that it's going to take to draw off both of those sources. And so we will be looking for some granting options, and likely we'll be going back again for the 2027 CIP cycle to ask for some additional funds to get this one funded. Our 2026 capital improvement projects. We've been talking about Bear River for a long time. I kind of want to just give a broader update on this and where we're at with this. When we kicked off this project, we had secured two partners for this. Yampa Valley Housing Authority with the Whitehaven property was going to be a secondary emergency access point for us, and also a connection to the city's potable water system. And then to the southeast neighbor, we call it the Streamside Development. That owner had also given us a commitment for the development that he was planning for that space as well. Both of those partners, Yampa Valley Housing Authority, had some funding struggles with the grants that they were going as they were looking to extend potable water into their site and also a sanitary sewer connection through their site. They had some funding issues. as we continue to talk with them, it looks like in January, they're going to have some funding open up for them. So that's probably the quickest connection that we're going to have for 2026 is to connect back through that property. But at the same time, late this fall, the Streamside development became alive again too, as the product that they're going to be offering on that site is turning to affordable housing option. That wouldn't really necessitate them driving the potable water system through that site, but they're still recognizing the partnership they have with us, and they're going to keep that with us by allowing us to have an easement through that site and for us to extend our water main through there, which is a win-win. Yampa Valley Housing Authority and Bear River Park would need to have a loop system through that park. We can't deadhead that water and just let it terminate in the park. So it's been a slow process and lots of conversations, but both neighbors that we're working with understand the need for the park to be there and have really honored that commitment they made to us early on. So as soon as we get some confirmation that those other projects are moving, probably more the Yampa Valley Housing Authority's project with Whitehaven, as soon as that happens, our RFP is ready. We'll go out for bid right away, and then we'll jump into our infrastructure phase. And have kind of included just a phasing map for this. The green is that first phase that we're planning on doing with the infrastructure. So again, all the below ground things. And then there's quite a bit of hard surface that's going to be happening with this. The boat launch is part of that, all the parking lots, the entry roundabout, and all the sidewalks and, just those kind of networks through the park will happen with that phase.
Sorry, go.
Yeah.
Those pictures of those trees, are those like existing trees or is that just like artist rendition?
A lot of those, I mean, yeah, it's a little artsy, but a lot of those trees, have been mapped as part of our project, and we built around as many of them as we possibly could. But we do like all the new landscaping features, like between the bike park, the volleyball and the basketball court. Those are all new additional trees, like anything that's kind of in a straight line, like inside the borders of construction. But all of the trees along the shoreline that's undisturbed, those are existing trees or clusters of trees.
Cool. Thank you.
Will the boat ramp be open before phase 2 and 3 are completed? Or is it just like, will you be able to use the boat ramp while y'all are working on the rest of the project?
That is the intent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's kind of one of the first new amenities that comes online.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking. And now I want to talk about, this is the third phase of the water conservation improvements. These are the other sites that I was kind of mentioning earlier. And I know I keep showing these really glamorous pictures, but these infrastructure projects really do help with the maintenance and the staff time that goes into maintaining the amount of turf that we have inside our portfolio. And as simple and as uninteresting as they are, they're pretty impactful. Emerald Park, 2026. 2025 was a design year for Emerald Park, and our intention was to always build in 2026, and a lot of moving parts with Emerald Park, but it still made sense for us to kind of capitalize on the fact that this design is complete and we're ready to go. The other portion is we didn't want costs to escalate any higher because we already had a fixed budget that we were trying to work with. Our original CIP budget was $1,250,000. And we are going to be stretching every penny to the max to try to get this project completed. There's a pretty significant a flooding issue that currently happens with that playground. And so we've got a pretty heavy civil plan that's going to go in to mitigate that with some infrastructure, underground piping that's going to help mitigate that water underneath this and keep it dry for us throughout the season.
Some pretty big rocks there too, right?
There's actually 12 massive boulders, and we've included those into the design. So we didn't want to get rid of any of those things. And, a lot of kids play on those because that's the only feature that's out there right now.
Now, what about next, if you're kind of looking towards the river to the right of the bathrooms, there's kind of like a creek swamp drainage in there. The kids all kind of cut through it to get over to Dudley. Is there any plans to kind of drain that or fill that in or build like a little bridge over there maybe to get to Dudley?
Not as part of the CIP project. We've talked about that. That drainage way will actually be the discharge point for this water that we're going to route around the playground. So we're going to still capitalize on the fact that it's there. It's a really interesting because it actually doesn't drain back to the Yampa River like you'd think. It was actually a waterway that took water over to the flour mill. I don't know how long ago that was, but that is actually to drain the other direction. So we're just still using it as a water conveyance corridor. But I think there will be some improvements because it is starting to naturally fill in just with the debris that's there. I know Stephanie's group has talked about just maintaining that area because it's come up several times during our design project for just the playground. But this CIP doesn't have any improvements to that or a walkway connector through there. Emerald Park irrigation improvements. We have approximately 18 acres of green space that we'll be dealing with. What you're seeing here, and then further to the north, the Dudley Field as well. We're going to kind of use the same playbook that we used at Ski Town Park. I did not bring my high-density polyethylene pipe samples for you again. I know you've seen them a couple times. They're so exciting. But it's the right material to use for our parks. It is the most low maintenance that we can possibly use, and it provides the longest lifespan for those systems. That's what we'll be utilizing here. We do have a couple other projects that we'll be dancing with a little bit out there. Public Works has their sanitary sewer interceptor that does intersect the park for 1,100 linear feet. And then Excel Energy will be upgrading some service lines, and they'll be putting in a 6-inch high-pressure gas service line through the soccer fields of that park too. So this has punted construction to 2027, but the design will be throughout 2026 as we navigate towards that project. We were funded $1,840,000 in this year's CIP budget to cover the cost of this project. The Yampa River Seahole projects that Stephanie mentioned, this is our first project that we've got to use the River Commercial Fee Fund to fund the design for this project. We are just kicking this off with a pre-construction, or not a pre-design meeting was 2 weeks ago out on site before we kind of got hit with snow. And again, Friends of the Yampa was there. It's really great when we can work with our partners in town to kind of shape that vision and shape that project scope. But you can see on the far shoreline just how heavily this is used. Obviously, this is a Riverfest photo, and this is probably when we're most heavily used. But the access, the connectivity to the core trail, these are all issues that we've identified kind of in our system, and we want to make some edits and corrections and improvements with this project. Any questions for me?
Very exciting.
A lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Any other questions, you guys? Guess that'll bring us to public comment. Any in the room? Online? All right. Well, thanks. That was awesome update. That'll bring us to upcoming agenda.
At your January meeting, there will be a recreation program update. We also, we're expecting a successful meeting next week with some of our Emerald Park users, and we're hoping to provide an update to you at the January meeting too on what we're looking at there.
Awesome.
For the director's report, we will email out our sit reps. I've got a couple things to highlight. Following your recommendation, City Council did sign or authorize the city manager to sign the purchase agreement for Whistler. So that was completed at the end of November. So we're looking at closing on that, a closing timeline of July 2027. So I know, big thank you to Commissioner Davis in helping to be a liaison with that neighborhood and get the fundraising efforts started. And then we will be off applying for grants as well for the city side of it. We'll provide you with updates as time goes along there. On November 12th, the Parks and Rec Department hosted an Emerald Park user group and stakeholder meeting regarding Emerald Park, Botanic Park fence line. We had another meeting last week. We'll be meeting again next week, but just want to give a big shout out to our team for coming up with creative solutions and working with all of those teams. And same with Commissioner Davis for attending that meeting as well. The user group is modeled after the success of the Howison Hill user group that's been meeting for a few years to help different stakeholders be able to hear each other's needs and come up with solutions together and work together to serve the community best. So we're looking forward to some results coming out there. Then on the ice rink, it's already been talked about a little bit, but we kicked off negotiations with those donors as well as the ice rink users to get an agreement going to nail down the specifics of what the $2 million city commitment and the $4 million in donations would look like and where we go from here. So some updates for you coming.
Awesome.
It's already been talked about tonight, but so instead of providing the update on Howison Hill, snowmaking operations and delay in seasons there, staff are definitely stressed with the our current weather conditions and the forecast. But so big thank you to them, but also huge thank you to our partners at the Winter Sports Club and the community. They're giving lots of kudos, positive energy, and we really appreciate their support when we can't really do much about warm weather. And good kudos to our crew for making as much snow as possible. They definitely are bummed when they see it get rained on. Besides that, Haymaker seeing similar things with the Nordic Center needing to wait for additional snowfall. We are excited to introduce our new food and beverage concept, Dream Maker, over the winter, provided by our food and beverage concessionaires that Drew highlighted tonight. So encourage everybody to get out there. They've got some awesome lunch and happy hour specials running throughout the winter with those Nordic operations and the Fringe Golf Simulator. So that's all I've got for you. Happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any of our commissioners want to adjourn the meeting here? Bring a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah,
happy
happy holidays, you guys.
Thank you, guys.